and welcome to this video. We'll be redrawing a classical painting in my style. This is the third video of this series, and this series is inspired by Phoebe's art here on YouTube. So I'll be leaving a link to her channel in the description below, and I recommend checking her out. The painting I'm going to be redrawing in my style today is a painting of Joan of Arc. This is technically not a classical painting though, since it was made in 1901. But I really love this painting and it is my absolute favorite, so I decided to redraw it anyway and put it in this series. I'm also a big fan of female armor and I really want to practice that and maybe learn something new, so I thought this would be a nice practice piece. So this painting was painted by Albert Lynch in 1901 and it is a oil on canvas, and it was featured in Figaro Illustré magazine in 1903. I've also heard that this is the most accurate depiction of Joan of Arc, because in a lot of the other older paintings she has red long hair, but apparently she actually had her hair in this more masculine hairstyle, more of a little bob with bangs, which makes a lot more sense to me. So the reason why I like this painting so much is not just because it is of a woman wearing armor and it has flowers, it is also because of the story behind the painting, or the story behind Joan of Arc. So Joan of Arc was born to a peasant family in northeast France in 1412, so a very long time ago. And in 1428, so when she was only 16, she requested to be taken to Charles, which was apparently a higher figure. He was like close to being a king or something at that point, and later testified that she had been guided by visions from Archangel Michael and Saint Margaret and Saint Catherine to help him save France from the English, or from English domination. And Charles of course believed her and just gave her an army, and they actually say that for half a year the English had been winning, but their siege collapsed within only 9 days after Joan of Arc arrived. So she was pretty good at her job. Also at one point, or more specifically May 7th in 1929, so when she was about, 17, she was also shot through the neck with an arrow, but she returned to the fight, and they say that the French were so inspired by her bravery that they defeated the English. But sadly, all cool things must come to an end, and she was captured by the English and their French collaborators and jailed for a whole year before she was put on trial for charges such as heresy, witchcraft, and also for wearing men's clothes. And she was charged and burned at the stake at the ripe age of 19. So her story is very brutal, but also very interesting and just kind of unbelievable. So that made me very inspired to draw her. So right here I'm trying to paint her face and trying to capture her likeness. She has quite round eyes in the original painting and quite thin pink lips, and then she also has this nose that I tried to capture. I don't know how to describe it, but she has a very specific nose in the painting. Then here I'm trying to draw the hands and failing miserably, so I got the reference in front of me just as a little help. For the other two classical painting redraws that I've done, I actually tried to add a lot of texture, and I don't really use my usual style. I try to kind of amp it up and be a bit more experimental. But for this piece I actually decided to go back to my original style and just paint it like I would paint most of my paintings, which is a lot more soft and yeah, without texture really, just textureless and soft. And I felt like that would fit the armor the best, because I have tried making armor with textured brushes, but I never feel like it looks metallic enough. So that's why I decided to go back to my original style here. And here I'm starting on the armor, and usually the faces are my absolute favorite part to paint. But in this painting it was absolutely the armor. I had such a blast making this armor. It was so fun. I love the shadows and the highlights in it. It just, it's so satisfying. So because I only see the armor in the original at one angle the whole time, there's only one angle, I can't see how it looks in the back, I can't see how things look under the flag, I had a little bit of a hard time figuring out how the pieces work together and how they fit. So I actually had to wing it for a lot of the little metallic parts and how they fit together and such, to kind of make sense of it, so they don't look like the original all that much, which kind of sucks, but also you gotta do what you gotta do. I actually learned a lot during this process as well, because this armor that she's wearing is highly detailed. There's so many different small pieces, and I love the under armor and then over armor and such, and there's just so many small details that I'm definitely gonna be applying to my own drawings. There's also these brown details that I'm painting in right now that I absolutely adore. I don't know what they're for or what they are, but they are just so cute. So I painted those on, and here I also realized that the armor I drew is very crooked, which is something I do a lot. My body's always a little crooked and I never really noticed until I finished with the painting. So here I fixed it. So I just selected that area and just made it less crooked and then painted it in again. And then I just continued as normal. When it came time to make all these tiny little details on the leather or the brown parts, I don't actually know what they are, they're just pretty little details, there are some tiny little patterns on them that you can barely see in the painting, and I couldn't find a good quality photo either, so it's really hard to see what they are. So there was a lot of trial and error here, and I kind of just was winging it, making some patterns that I felt looked good. And then I noticed that on one of the chest pieces there was something that kind of resembled a leaf, so I just went with that. I also really like the kind of organic forms with the more geometrical forms of the armor. I think it looks good and adds a little contrast. So on the upper parts of the armor, so not on the brown parts but just the upper part, there is also some form of a pattern, but I can really not see anything. I can't make anything out. So I also had to kind of wing it there, so I just added a few sections because that's what kind of looks like is happening in the original, and then I just brought back the leaves and the organic forms and maybe a little sun in the middle because I thought it would look kind of cute. Here I add in the flagpole before I continue on the armor, and I also drew the sword in real quick, and I was trying to make it not contrast too much with the lower part of the armor. But that kind of is what happened in the original as well. It's kind of hard to see the sword because everything is just grey, so it blends in very well. This was also probably the hardest part of the armor because it was really hard to see how it worked in the original. It looks like it's like tiny bits that are on top of each other, and then there's like a chainmail in the middle. So I just kind of went with that. Yeah, was very much winging it here, and I have never drawn chainmail before. So I struggled a lot with that one, but I decided to just make a bunch of circles in one color, and then after I finished putting them all together, I would then later color them in. So first I put them in, and then I changed the color of the background, and then I added an alpha lock and just made a little bit of a shine on them. Then here's the sword. The sword was fun, easy, just like the armor, really, same techniques and everything. Here I shade the flag real quick and just add a very quick background before I decide to finish her up, which were the eyes. That's the last little detail. And yeah, I gave her bluish eyes because it looks like that's what she has. She has this kind of grayish, but I added a little bit more blue to them because I wanted them to pop a bit more. Yeah, made them nice and shiny. I also decided on adding the 3 eyelashes because I thought they would look cute. And then I also made her eyebrows a little bit thicker and longer because I realized that her original eyebrows were a bit bigger. And here I start in the background. I add a bunch of flowers. I'm also kind of rushing through this one. I didn't care as much about the background as I cared about her. So they are really quickly shaded and drawn in. Yeah, and then I also added the plants in the background, which was actually kind of fun, but also a very quick fix. And then I also very, very weakly drew in the castle in the background. I did a terrible job on this one, and I didn't really try. Yeah, I wasn't really feeling it at this point. I was kind of done with the painting. I'd wasted way too much time on it, and I didn't care about the castle. And then here I tried to draw in the letters of the flag. I don't know what the flag is saying, so this was also just very much me winging it and hoping that it looks kind of similar. But that is it for this drawing, and here is the final result. I think she looks really good actually. I'm pretty happy with it. Here's a quick close-up of her. She is definitely my favorite so far of the series, and next up I hope to make Frida Kahlo, because I also really like her and her story. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you liked it, and if you did and you want to see the other paintings that I did in this series, then I'll put them on the screen right now, and I'll see you again next week. Goodbye!